During times that I was really struggling to create a life that I desire, I now realize looking back that I was completely unaware of this principle that I'm going to be sharing in this video. At this time, I felt stuck. I felt like nothing was moving. I was in like a stagnant place, and I was kind of just waiting and hoping that things would change and that I would start manifesting the life that I was praying for. If this is something that you're going through right now, then I'm so glad that you clicked on this video, because this video was made specifically for you. Hi, my name is Amy, and in this video I'm going to be speaking about one principle that has completely shifted my reality, and I'm going to be giving you 3 ways that you can understand it so that you can shift yours. So you may have heard of a book called The Hermetic Principles, and this is based on teachings by Hermes Trismegistus. I find it hard to say his name. I'm sorry if the pronunciation is bad, and this is a being that is associated with like old ancient wisdom and knowledge. And one of the principles that has completely shifted my reality is the principle of cause and effect. And this is the principle that every action has a corresponding reaction or consequence, basically stating that nothing happens by chance and that everything in the universe is interconnected. So every action has a ripple effect and affects the whole in some way. And this principle also reminds us to take mindful action. And the first thing that I want to speak about in relation to cause and effect is thoughts, words, and actions. And understanding that every thought we have, every word that we say, and then every action that we take has a consequence. So becoming more mindful of these is really key to shifting our reality. So when I was going through that time where I was really struggling to create the desires that I wanted, I was in a lot of ways really unconscious of how I was choosing to spend my day, what my actions were, why I was taking those actions. So I want to give you an example. One of the thoughts that I noticed that I was continuously telling myself and even speaking out loud to people was that I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I want to do. And this was kind of like a story that I had told myself. And because I was telling myself this story, this was showing in the results of my life. So I was pretty scattered. I didn't have a clear focus of something that I had chosen to commit to. I was kind of flip-flopping between doing one thing and doing the other thing. And I didn't have a concrete focus on what I was going to be spending my time doing and what I was going to be taking action on. So what I did was I started to say to myself in the mornings that I know what I want to do. And just from that little shift in my thinking, I was then able to take the next step towards what I was actually wanting to do. And it actually completely shifted how I felt about my life. I realized that I actually do know what I want to do, and it's just taking those little incremental steps towards that. And I'll give you another example when it comes to words. So every word has a frequency, right? And then also the energy behind your words also changes the frequency of the words that are being said. If you are speaking to someone and you're having a lot of judgmental thoughts in your head, that person is subconsciously going to be able to feel that. Whether they're conscious of it or not, they can feel it in their body. Becoming aware of how we're thinking and choosing our words more consciously to get the outcome that we actually want. Let's say that we want to get a compassionate response from someone. There's actually a way to do this that you're more likely to gain this compassionate response, and that all goes into non-violent communication. I speak about non-violent communication in another one of my videos, which talks about communication habits for deep and fulfilling relationships, and this is really related to cause and effect. When I started learning about communication and how to choose your words and express yourself in a way that you are taking responsibility for your own feelings and also communicating with compassion, I realized how this had such a big effect on my life. Just learning how to actually speak and express myself properly. So I used to really struggle with expressing how I felt because I had quite a bad fear of conflict and just, general people pleasing tendencies and kind of bulldozing my own feelings for other people's feelings. And one time I was working at this company, and when I started working there, it was in the contract that I would be working from home 2 days a week. And after a few months of working there, my boss tried to change this, and he tried to say that he wanted me in all week. And this was something that I was really not happy about, because I had originally agreed to do the job under the agreement that I was going to be working from home. Before I had learned to, in more effective ways, I probably would have just gone along with what he had said without actually considering my own feelings. And even my parents were like, Amy, just do what he says. You don't want to lose your job. You know, I had this programming that you just kind of have to do what other people want from you. Otherwise, you can't keep your job. And now, looking back, that perspective for me is kind of telling the universe that you don't feel like you're good enough. So I didn't do what my parents did. I actually went and told my boss that I was feeling really stressed about this, and I explained to him exactly how I felt. And he ended up letting me stick to our original agreement and continue working from home. So for number 2, I'm going to dive a bit deeper into actions. When I first started meditating, I really started to feel into my body and notice how certain things I was choosing to do were affecting me. And in the beginning, this showed up in the music that I was listening to. At this time, I was listening to a lot of mainstream hip hop kind of music, and I noticed that a lot of the lyrics and a lot of the things that were being spoken about in these songs were actually going round and round in my head and connected to stories and beliefs that I had picked up from this music. These were not beneficial stories. These were related to, you know, how men treat women, and really I started to believe that men just treated women badly, and this was also being mirrored to me in my life. So I started to realize that listening to this music wasn't really beneficial to me, and I completely cut it out of my life, and my anxiety reduced so much. It took me a while to reprogram my mind, and I think that our mind needs some evidence to start adopting new beliefs. And so because I was listening to so much music that was kind of degrading to women and not the most respectful, you know, lyrics, I had gained so much evidence in my mind that there was bad men out there, and this is what was being reflected to me in my reality. Sorry, not bad, but like men that weren't treating me how I wanted to be treated. So it took me a while to start reprogramming my mind and start adopting new beliefs. So since then, I've been a lot more picky with my music and the content that I'm taking in through sound, because I notice how powerful it can be on my mind. And I'll give you another example. So I used to watch a lot of TV before bed, and just when I was younger, I just grew up watching a lot of TV, and I do love TV every now and then, but most nights now I choose to spend the last few hours of my night off of screens and maybe reading, doing things that I know are going to set me up for a better day the next day, planning my day maybe the night before bed, or meditating, things like that, maybe a little bit of a dance, doing things that I feel like really are going to nourish me and not just completely clog up my mind. I think what I realised as well is when I watch TV at night or watch lots of TV, that content is kind of just running round in my mind like the next few hours or the day after, and then it also influences how I'm acting, and it influences what I'm thinking about certain situations. So everything that we take in, all the content that we take in, is going to affect us in some way. So becoming more mindful of that has really, really helped me in my life. And just to add to this, more things that we can become more mindful of is choosing the people that we surround ourselves with. What environments do we like to spend time in? For example, for me, I like to spend most of my time in clean environments that are tidy and set up nicely. I like to be around really enjoyable scents and things like that. And I'm not saying that you can't spend time out of these environments. What I'm saying is to be able to spend as much time as you can and not spending most of your time in environments that don't feel good for you. And obviously a massive, massive one is the food that we're putting in our body. Like, I don't think I need to explain how this has an effect. You know, there's so much research that has already been done and is still being done to show that choosing different foods is going to have a massive effect on our mood, our energy levels, our focus, our productivity. Most of the time I try to eat food that I feel like really feels good in my body. And this also comes back to being mindful and choosing stuff that feels good for you. What feels good for me is not going to feel good for everyone else. So being mindful of how your body enjoys to eat and what feels good for you. What kind of things do you choose to do that make you feel good? Let me know in the comments below. I'm always open to ideas. So number 3 is timelines. Till Swan has a really good video on this where she explains how really conscious people are going to have so many different options of timelines and options of different realities that they can choose between, and it's going to be harder to predict the more conscious person's life path because they realize that they have all these options that they can choose from and that they can divert and change course whenever they want. Whereas the unconscious person, it's easier for like psychics to predict the life path of someone that is living really unconsciously, and that is because they are not seeing the potentials and the options, and they're kind of just letting life happen to them rather than living life, if that makes sense. This is one thing I like to remind myself of, is like, is this action that I'm taking aligned with the timeline that I want to be on? And then also reminding myself that in this reality, we have delayed results. So we are always planting seeds, and we are not going to necessarily see the results and the fruit of those seeds until much later on. If you're taking these conscious actions and you feel like it's not really doing anything, like, trust me, it is. Everything has a ripple effect, and just keep doing whatever you feel like isn't alignment for you, and eventually that will start to manifest itself in this reality. And one more thing on the topic of timelines is I like to do a meditation where I am basically shifting into a new parallel reality. And Aaron Doughty talks about this a lot on his channel, which is where I got this from. And basically the concept is that you go into a meditation and you visualize yourself already manifesting the life that you want to live, and asking your higher self, how would I act? What would I be doing as this person, the person that is on this timeline to manifest in this life, whatever it is that you want to manifest, whatever it is that how you want to be living? What does this version of myself do? And you can go into detail as this as much as possible. What do they do when they wake up in the morning? How do they eat? What things are they working on? And then you can see what images start to come to mind. And this has been so powerful for me when I start to like lose my way or feel stuck. Usually I'll go into a meditation like this and I'll ask my higher self, what do I need to be doing? Or I'll visualize, put myself into that timeline, visualize what I'll be doing, and then I will just start acting out like I'm that person. And this is basically a shift in realities, and you are putting yourself on a completely new timeline, and therefore manifesting the life that you actually want by acting and putting in that action that version of yourself would be doing. I hope that makes sense. If you've got any stories you want to share, let me know. I would love to hear your perspective on these things, if you agree or disagree. But that is it for this video. So if you would like to see more videos from me, then please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.